You are watching Leicester Till I Die TV.
Watch us on YouTube.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform.
Or ask your smart speaker
To play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good day, goodbye. Hello, how the devil are you? Do apologise, it's been a bit of a chaotic evening. I've changed the theme of tonight's show almost as often as Phil Schofield changes. Well, yeah, let's not go there, eh? Good morning. Okay, this is LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you for joining us. Do please join in the chat to get your points across. It's all about opinions. This show's all about mine, but put your thoughts in the chat as well. But obviously, as we always say, keep it respectful. If you're listening on podcast, thank you for lending me your ears, whether that be on the YouTube podcast platform, Spotify, Google, Podcast Addict, Apple iTunes, or many, many others. Thank you very much for lending me your ears. And of course, we are all over the socials, which you can find, there we are, as LTID TV or Leicester Till I Die for some of the older ones that I set up and I can't change the names for. So this show, and we're probably actually going to do the show that I'd planned to do tomorrow afternoon, which was basically going to be looking at the players that we had released. Now, no surprises in there. Some people were saying, oh, Hamza signed a new contract. Well, let me just get that straight from the start. No, he hasn't. We extended his contract this time last year before he went to Watford on loan. And we have exercised that extra year, and we are going to be keeping him, which is probably the one good bit of news to come out of today. We're in talks with, I said Johnny Rotten then. We could do with Johnny Rotten on the pitch, couldn't we? We're in talks with Johnny Evans. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that one. I think maybe we've learnt and we need an experienced voice in the dressing room, if not 100% of the time on the pitch. So maybe that's not a bad thing to extend it for a year. Albrighton, we haven't heard about. He's got another year left in his contract, so I'm guessing he's stopping, which I'd be quite happy for. I said I wanted him to do that on the show the other night. But look, what has really, really, really pissed me off? I mean, you can see it. You can see it there. The players that were going, we expected them to go. Tielemans, he always said he wanted to go to a top European club that was playing in the top European competitions. Aston Villa. So there's not a name there that we knew probably wouldn't be leaving. The only one I was probably disappointed in it was Mendy. I would have liked him to have stayed, but look, it is what it is. We have to cut our cloth accordingly. Now, look, that doesn't bother me. That, like I said, is what bothers me. We knew those players would be leaving, but when you put it into harsh reality, now, I've never run my own business. My older brother has, and it's had its ups and downs. Let's just put it that way. But you know what? when I worked for them, the reason I didn't want to run my own business was because I knew I hadn't got the self-control to do it. And I knew I'd just 10 more minutes in bed and that would turn into an hour. I will have the hour on at the end, never would. And I'd end up closing the business down. But I worked, well, my last 25 years was actually working in advertising, as near as damn it. Now, we used to have meetings, and we would know how much it would cost to make an advert. So yes, we had offers in. So you might, and a couple of them where you pay for 4 weeks, you get one free. You pay for 6 weeks, you get an extra two free. They were all costed in, as all these offers are. Buy two, get one free. It's all costed in. Believe you me, when some businesses say, "Oh, these are loss makers," they're not. Might be break-even makers, but there's no way does any business in this day and age make a loss on purpose on anything that it sells. And we knew when we were putting these adverts together the cost base. So I would, when I'm ringing up somebody, always start up here with the prices, and then you can come down. You go in there, you're a bit stuck if they say, "Oh, can't afford that." But we knew what it would cost us. We knew, that if we had a last minute space to sell, we knew what we could go down to. We knew the amount of money, and anything under that, by the time you've taken in the my time in selling it and my phone calls, the design people to design the advert if that was needed, the setters that would set the paper out, and of course the printing costs as well. So that all has to be taken into the account of when we are selling something. So even when you go in and go, "Oh, can you knock a fiver off that?" They probably can do because they're making a tenner on it. And it's the old market philosophy. So we knew what we could go down. But if I was to go to my boss and go, "Boss, look at the last financial year, my figures, yeah, and I've made £25,000 loss, I'm afraid. But the figures look good, sales were up, but we kind of lost £25,000. I'd have been out the door with me with a boot up my arse. And whatever we say about football these days, football is a business. All right, you could argue that this is paper money, but it's still going to be financed in. The top has just come out, a few months ago, and paid off, didn't pay off, but converted £192 million worth of debt into shares in his name and the company's name. And yet we can afford, allegedly, to write off £100 million. Let's have a look then. Here we go. So Leicester City have confirmed the departure of 7 senior players as their squad exodus continues, but they remain in talks with skipper Johnny Evans over a new deal. City released their retained list following their Premier League relegation, with nearly all of those out of contract at the end of June, heading for the exit. Yuri Tillmans has already announced the end of his time at City. He's going to that top European club, like I say, Aston Villa. They're playing in the Champions League. Oh no, they're not, are they? They're not. No. Kagler Soyuncu, he's fair play to him. He's gone to Atletico Madrid. Wish him all the best. Joining them saying a goodbye, Papamendi. Look, I love Papamendi. I was one of for those of us of a certain age, Papamendi, hey Papa. Yeah, that was a sweet song, but you get me drift. Shame to see him go, but he's going. £13 million he cost us. I suppose you could look and go, wow, that wasn't bad value. It is when you're getting nothing back for him. But good luck to him wherever he goes. As long as I say with Soyuncu, Daniel Amati. Look, love him or hate him, There were times of the last couple of seasons where we'd have been up the shit without him, and it wasn't always his fault that he was played out of position. Of course, that was all down to one man.
Bell end, bell end, bell end.
Exactly. I need to take that off loop, don't I? Tete's gone. Yeah, Tete time didn't last long. Well, look, who knew that there was one awful Brazilian out there? Obviously, they needed to play him straight down the centre because that's where most Brazilians are. But look, no, joking aside, he was shit most of the time. Ryan Bertrand and Iosi Perez. Now, let's not say too much about them. They joined Leicester City for more than £100 million. I mean, that's been rounded down. That has been rounded down to £100 million. And yet we can afford to let all of the. All right, let's take Ted Tielemans out of the equation for a minute because he was just an arsehole. He was up there with Fofana, wasn't he? He could have easily signed a contract so that we got some money, but you know, Yuri Dennis Wise Tielemans decided it's all about me. So he can fuck off, and I hope his career goes downhill from here on in. But why? Well, we know why Kagler Soyuncu. I mean, if he was, he came out and said that if he'd been offered a new contract, then he wouldn't have signed it. And who can blame him because he wasn't being picked? You know, I could have probably got a game at left centre back before Rodgers would pick Soyuncu. And of course, when I say Rodgers, of course I do mean
Bell end.
So, but how did Daniel Amartey? How is it left to this position? Tete, all right, we only had him on for 6 months, but we paid so many million for his loan. Did we not check that he was pretty decent? I thought this Martin Glover that had come in was picking us decent players now. Ryan Bertrand, yeah, okay. We shouldn't have bought him in the first place, let's be honest with you, although I do think he was unlucky. He did actually look decent in the one game that he played for us, and that was pre-season friendly. And of course, Perez, as it puts in the Mercury or whatever, one of them, best remembered for his hat trick against Southampton in the 9-0. Yeah, but that was about the only 3 goals he ever scored for us. So we have paid £100 million for those players, and yet we allowed their contracts to run down. Tielemans wasn't going to sign. We didn't want to let that run down. Maddison, 1 year left on his contract. What's Maddison going to do? He's going to go up and say, Ted Tielemans, now he's got the right idea. Run his contract down, then he can get a huge big signing on fee when he moves. Wonder where he would have got that idea from. Break a leg, Tielemans, please. So, yeah, it's ridiculously bad running of a football club. And let's not forget, add to that 100 million, because, all right, we wouldn't get £1 million if we sold Jamie Vardy now, and that's what he cost us. Get that. Players are like cars, aren't they? Once they go on the pitch, the value can go down as much more likely than go up, and especially if you get a good few years out of them, they won't be worth what you bought them. Excuse me. I get that, but to let these players go for nothing, and like I say, we've lost on quite a few players, but then all teams have: Man United, Liverpool, and the rest. Slimani, 38 to £40 million. We let him go for nothing just to get him off the wage bill. Did Musa not go for nothing as well? And I will get to people's comments, by the way. I just want to get to the end of my rant. These are, we can't keep saying, well, Top, he's not his dad, and He hasn't got his dad who's got the experience. On that board, there's him. I think there's a female member of his family, his brother's vice chairman. They're supposed to be running this multi-million-pound tourism business. And don't give me all the shit that it's been hit by COVID. I know, we're not talking about that. We're talking about people taking their eyes off the ball. But if they can't, they should be able to. A football club is a business. And I can remember saying, well done, Top. All right, you were late in telling us about FFP last season. It would have helped to have known at the start of the season so that we weren't blaming Brendan every 5 minutes when we know that he hadn't actually got any money to spend, and you only had the balls to tell us on the day that the transfer window closed. But I actually said at the time, fair play, Top. I'd sooner have a club that's solvent in the second tier than have a club that's going to go out of business trying to live that dream. And then we tried to live that dream, of course we did. Maybe that's why we held on to Tielemans too long. I don't know. We certainly held on to Rodgers too long, didn't we? Oh, Rodgers, mentioned his name again. I'm sorry. Every time I mention him. And I said I didn't want to be Leeds Mk2. Because what Leeds did under Ridsdale when he was chairman and David O'Leary was the manager, they lived the dream. They were buying players, and then they were sacking managers. But they got through to a Champions League semi-final, and then they didn't. A bit like Leicester, they didn't carry it on. They went down that same year that we went down. Lillian Nally scored that great goal against them. And they went down, because they were badly managed. They were that close to going out of business. Now, hopefully we're not. But they were buying players. Rio Ferdinand bought in at a fast amount of money, sold for peanuts. Batty sold to Newcastle peanuts. They would do it. And I said, I don't want to become a Leeds Mk2. But I've got to ask the question, Top. Are we a Leeds Mk2? Because if that's the sort of business we're doing, and if that's how you run your business, then I'm sorry, I haven't got much faith in King Power being able to keep us afloat, because I don't think King Power will be afloat for much longer. You could say, well, Top had to be away looking after his business. I understand that. But the book stops with him. When it comes to the playing side, whatever you moan about, the book stops with Brendan. He was the manager. The book stops with Top. And he's come out and said very nice things since then. His brother, Kuhn Appice, he is vice chairman. All right, he might have had his eye off the ball because he was helping with King Power. Susan Whelan, OBE. What does OBE stand for? Overblown? I can't think. I mean, what use is she? She has overseen this. She is Chief Executive Officer, CEO, and she has seen us lose 7 players and lose 100 million. Now, okay, a lot of those players might, we bought Mendy for 13. He was our biggest, most expensive signing when we signed Papa Mendy. So we might not have got 13 million, but if we'd got 10 for him, it would have negated that. It wouldn't have been 100 million loss. Susan Whelan, you need to resign. Simon Capper, our finance director. Finance? No, I only got my O level in maths, but I can work out that that's not good. Simon Capper, hopefully you've got a few degrees and you're fucking useless at your job. Simon Capper needs to take a long walk off a short pier as well. John Rudkin, Director of Football, in charge of the contracts. He couldn't be in charge of a fucking credit card. Fucking useless he is. Because he's let these players' contracts run down. And we're losing £100 million. And that's going to affect us going forward. because that means that's £100 million. All right, let's say we're not going to get £100 million for those players. Let's say that we might have got £50 million for them. That might have meant we could have held on to Harvey Barnes. We're going to have to sell Harvey Barnes because he's one of our most sellable assets. We're going to have to sell James Maddison because he's the other one sellable asset that we've got. Maybe we could have kept hold of one of them if we'd made some money on here. But Susan Whelan, Simon Capper, John Rudkin, you could not organise a wank-off in a whorehouse. You really, really couldn't. That is how bad you are. When you're looking at we're losing £100 million. And then you've got Andrew Neville, Football Operations Director. What the fucking hell does he operate? He couldn't operate a fucking forklift. And these are the people that we're putting in and allowing to, and I'm not going to get into it too much because I did another show on it, but these are the people that we're allowing to have a look into what's gone wrong at the club. I'll tell you what's gone wrong at the club. It's being run by fucking wombles. That's what's wrong with the club. These are the people, Top, that you have left to run this club in your absence. They couldn't run a fucking bath. Well, if they did, they'd forget to put the fucking tap in. We were the club that and I keep saying this, I know, but it is true. We are the club that everybody looked at and said, we want to be like that club. I wish we had owners like that. Bet you fucking don't wish you had owners like we've got now. Who wants to be like us now? Nobody. Rochdale if we're lucky. You could see this coming. Leeds Mk2, we could see it coming. I thought, no, this club knows what it's doing. It won't let. But losing 100 fucking million. Add on 40 million for Slimani. Dear Batty, how did he go for free? All these players that we've had to let go for nothing. This is what pisses me off. But we can't win. We're not a Manchester City. We're not a Newcastle. We're not owned by some mega rich oil country. You know, £100 million, Shapeman saw at Man City, he'd lose that from a hole in his pocket while he's playing with his balls. I mean, he wouldn't care. But we can't afford to lose that. Well, it appears we can afford to lose it because we have. Dan is in. Good evening, Dan. How are you? Well, I never saw it like that. That's terrible business sense. Already on a club that took major hits during the pandemic on owner's business and couldn't afford to sack their manager sooner. I don't think there was that we couldn't afford to. I just think he didn't make that decision. He was too loyal to him. I don't think sacking Rodgers. Sorry, you made me say it. You made me say
Bell end.
Sacking the bell end. I'm allowed to say that, then I don't have to play it. I think it was just down to his loyalty, not down to the cost. But welcome along, Turf. At least you're going the other way up the ladder, so good luck to you, mate. Galatasaray interested in Yuri. Well, let's face it. I mean, they do get into the Champions League. They're a step up from Aston Villa, aren't we? That will be on another show, mate. Scott, evening, you lovely lot. Hope all is well. Oh, all fantastic, Scott. Have you got 100 million quid you can lend to the Muppets that run Leicester City? Blue Fox is in high. Another show another time, Ash. It's a shame Mendy has gone, but he needs to play. I'm sorry he's gone, but we all knew he was going to. Both me and Brad wanted to keep him in the show we did recently. Luke, terrible business, because any good business would get some money for the outgoing. Running a business brings loads of pressure along with it, but already the signs aren't looking good. There's a thing came up, just to sidetrack, Luke, on the purchases that Nottingham Forest had made, and it looked like and I could be wrong. It was on Twitter, but it looked like you had 4 goalkeepers. 5 strikers. How did Lingard work out for you, by the way? How much did you sign him for? I know he's been let go or put on the transfer list. All clubs are as bad, but I'm bothered about mine today. Chris, maybe we should be looking at players that have or will be released by clubs promoted from Championship. If we're looking at players that have been released, how shit are they? There's a reason they've been released. When we bought Harry Maguire from Hull, he hadn't been released by Hull, but he'd been relegated with them, but he wasn't released. If we hadn't bought him or nobody else had, he would have stayed at Hull. So I don't particularly want players that have been released. I don't want to go back to the 80s, 90s under the likes of Craig Levein and Allen, where we were basically the Derby and Jones club. If any player was over 40 and coming towards the end of his career, we'd get them in just because they're a name. I mean, Les Ferdinand, what the hell did he actually do for the club? We call him Sir Les. But why? What did he do for the club? Nothing. But we bought him because it was Les Ferdinand. And he knew he was going to get one last payday off us. I don't want to go back to that, no. And I certainly don't want to be looking at players that have been released. Good luck to Soyuncu indeed. I'm glad Marty is gone. He is awful, not a Premier League player. He wasn't, mate. He was. We would have been. We were in the shit without him. And we would have been. I can remember the moans I heard going up Wembley Way for the Community Shield when it was named. He was in the match. He was then named man of the match, which was quite laughable because Man City only had the kids out up front. But look, he did a job. He was asked to play out. I mean, he's not a left-sided centre-back, but that's where Bellend played him. So I wish him all the best. I do wish him all the best. Is it Perez you mean there, Scott, by any chance? Again, wrong player, shouldn't have been bought. Like I say, Rob Tanner was speaking to the Bell End and said, why did you buy Vestergaard? He doesn't fit into the sort of team style you play. Oh, yes, he does, said Brendan Rodgers to Rob Tanner. I never played him again all season. Rob Tanner sat there going, I wonder. Oh, yes, why not? Why not? And I love the fact that he's being linked with going back to Celtic. Talk about Christians going into the Lions' Den. Chris, now we have a new head of recruitment in. I feel we have a chance to build something good. Yeah, I mean, last summer we didn't have anybody because we decided to go for a guy who Southampton put on gardening leave, Martin Glover. But yeah, fingers crossed it is going to get better. But it's John Rudkin who has the final say. Martin Glover just goes out and finds them. He doesn't make the decision. The manager, whoever that is going to be, will say, these are the positions I want filled, like we did with Christensen, Sutar, and to a point, Tete. And John Rudkin will say, okay, and he'll go and see Martin Glover and say, these are the ways, and they'll come back with their ideas. So, but at least we've got Martin Glover, who is good at his job. Michael's in, hello, or is it David? I can never remember. Yes, we do. I think it is time for him to go. Why can't players be given 1 year rolling contracts? Well, they're not, because if you give them 1 year, I see what you're getting at. But then again, I don't know. Would we make anything from them if we sold? I don't know. I think we should do that with managers because we're always paying off managers for being shit, aren't we? Box, good evening, sir. Welcome along. Reminds of us losing Cavani, Mata, Matic, Lingard, Grant, Pogba, Ronaldo for free last year. Yeah, like I said, it's not just Leicester, but we can't. Well, I don't know if Man United can afford it, but we can't afford to lose £100 million. We can't. Anyone who wants to sell a car, for example, would bid to near enough the asking price. It'd be good if you have under asking. Has he already? Yeah, has he? If he's gone, good luck to Newcastle. The only reason these people will stay in their jobs is because of relegation. It cushions the loss of 7 players, but it shouldn't. And they need to go. Dan, just don't fight it. Honestly, stick with Phil. Okay, stick with Phil. You've got to stop stalking me. You really have, Dan. And I just, Dan. Let it go. Let it go. You've got to. You've got to. Shakespeare would be a good director of football. I saw you post that earlier on a video that I did, Boris, and it's a fair shout. It's a fair shout. Jack's in. Good evening, Jack. What are your thoughts, Jack? What are your thoughts on it? From St. Dan, indeed. Lingard's decline has been rapid. You don't want Lansbury released by Luton. We don't want anybody. If somebody, I'm not being awful. If they're not good enough for Luton, we need. And I'm not disrespecting Luton, and I'm not suddenly turning into no disrespect, Anthony, an Arsenal fan. But we should. We know we're Leicester, so we've got to have these players. But you've got to look at the ambition. We're not going to go and get Messi because he's just been released by PSG. Of course, we're bloody not. But we've got to be looking at players that are hungry. Like we went down to League One. Let's get players in that are hungry and players that want to come, that maybe take that step up. Muzzy is it? Robbie Savage, Neil Lennon. They weren't. None of them were released, but they were all in. Well, okay, they'd been released by Man United, a couple of them, but they had actually were playing, in Muzzy Izzet's case, in the reserve. So they were getting regular football. More people at the club will lose their jobs at this rate. They're pretty good at looking after the staff, in fairness, Luke. Just Pete Millwall. Just say no. I love Millwall. I think they're a lovely little friendly, welcoming club. All quiet at the football club. Rudkin should go as well. He did. Well, he should. Yeah, I agree 100%. Foxes forever. We should be buying the championship. Best talent. Apparently, we've got £111 million kitty just for coming down, which what we got from the Premier League last season. Because, of course, parachute payments won't kick in. And I don't agree with parachute payments. We should not. We, Leicester City, Southampton, Burnley haven't got any parachute payments because they come straight back up. They would have got it this season had they not. But why should a team? It's rewarding failure. Well, that is then we've got to say to the players, is Leicester still an attractive proposition? And I think when you look at it, you've got to say, well, look at the training facility, ground extension, the way that we're going to be developing the area around the ground. It is still an attractive proposition if you're comparing us possibly to QPR, Rotherham, or things like that. So we could still attract them. But what we don't want to attract too many of is failures from other clubs, because that's just going to be losing money. Like I said, we did it with the Dennis Wise, Martin Keown, Les Ferdinand. I'm sure there's other players there that I can't remember. Exactly, John. Exactly 110% agree with you. I can sadly see us having to get a fair few loans in. We did it when we went down to League One, didn't we? We got a few loans in because we didn't want to commit to players if we weren't going to be down there long. We weren't. We came straight back up. Look, that's all for the future show. And we'll be talking tomorrow with Brad, probably around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to be doing a show about the players that have left. I am just totally peed off that we as a club cannot afford to lose £100 million. Well, yeah, John. If we had that money, apparently we've got a loan that we've not kicked in yet that we could. It scares me. I am scared that we're going to end up being Leeds United Mk2. And if you're not sure, go and look on YouTube. Go and look at It is true that, Luke, parachute payments, I think, shouldn't be allowed for the relegated club, and that gives you an advantage. And you'll discover that next season. Yeah, fair point, Colonel. Fair point. Georgie, Dean Smith to be given the job full time, while Woodkin sits on his sunbed for the next 3 weeks. I think, to be honest with you, if he was going to be given the job full time, I think we'd have heard it now. Can you see us promoting youngsters? Yes, I can, Scott, and we're going to be talking about that in the show tomorrow night at 8:00. Some of the youngsters that we might use, so you'll enjoy it. Some of the youngsters that we might be bringing through, and who we should keep and who we should use. We're already being linked with a youngster that we've had from Villa. So, yeah, Georgie, quite. That's exactly my point. And if you're wondering what it's about, you go and look on YouTube and look at that period. It's I think it's Blood on the Boardroom Floor or something like that. It's all about Leeds going out of business. Gerald Krasner, who actually had a lot to do with saving Bournemouth down here, saved the club. But that was a club that went for the dream, but sold the crown jewels and basically sold their soul to try and get there. And look what happened to Leeds. I hope that's not going to happen to Leicester, but when we're making decisions like that, John Rudkin, get out of our club, please. Please. Andrew Neville, sort it out. Susan Whelan, you couldn't organise a piss-up in a brewery. Well, you can, but then you wouldn't be able to pay the bill because you'd be making a loss again. I just cannot believe it. I really can't. Want to say a big thank you to everybody that's been in the chat. Really do appreciate it. And thanks for coming in and joining in. Apparently this turns Dan on. That does scare me quite a bit. But thanks to everybody that's been in the chat. Thank you to everybody that's been listening on the podcast, whether I say that's on the Apple, on Spotify, on Apple or on Google, Podcast Addict or any of them. Really do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. If you've already subscribed, or even if you're not, smash that like button. It really does get the station or the channel, shown on other people's home pages. It does appreciate it. Click that notification bell because we've still got loads of shows coming up. Tomorrow night we're going to be doing the questionnaire that was on the Leicester Mercury website. On Wednesday with Dan, he's going to be coming in and telling us all about what we can look forward to facing with the Championship teams next season. We've got lots of quizzes as well. Cheers, Georgie. Thank you so very much. And if anybody wants to, they've not. You can see all those guys going across the bottom there. They are members. $1.99. That's all it costs. You get emojis and things, I believe. But the things that you do get is you are supporting the channel. All the artwork and everything you see, it's all done. It has to be paid for. And it all helps going towards that. We have to pay for StreamYard. We get a bit back from YouTube, I grant you, but it does help the channel. $1.99 a month, that's all it is. After qualifying period, you get 5% off LTID merchandise. And also, next season, we will be doing members-only shows. So if you're not a member, you won't actually be included in that. Also, as a member, you are within the community chat on YouTube, and there are a lot of posts go out that people don't see with figures and everything that is just for the members. Only $1.99 a month. We've merged the bronze, the silver, and the gold, and we've kept it at the bronze price because we are in a cost of living crisis. But look, thank you very, very much, everybody. Really do appreciate it. Do come again, as they say. And I'm sure, just for one last time,
Bell end.
Had to be done. Thanks, everybody. I've been Chris. This has been LTID TV. That's been £100 million loss. Maybe we need to send this guy in. Good night.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network.
TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.